This is going to be fun as an intro. Let's see what we got. When you got on a roller coaster last time, did you assume the risk of death? I am amazed that they didn't try rolling this down without someone in it first. Mark Breyer, the Husband Wife Law Team. Today we're going to review an actual theme park that had a bunch of collisions. You go there, you think you're going for a ride for the day with your families, all kinds of people getting hurt. And as an actual trial lawyer that fights for people, I cannot wait to learn about this. I didn't even know this existed. The other people on my team found this, said, Mark, you ought to check this out and let everyone watch. I can't wait to do it. But you know what? A lot of you are watching, but not a lot of you are subscribed. 98% of the people. Go ahead, subscribe, like it, comment. I want to hear more. We want to give you what you want to hear. Let's watch this together. Here we go.
Welcome to Action Park, the world's wildest amusement park, and probably the deadliest. Guests regularly get launched off rides. They dislocate their shoulders and lose their teeth, or even their fingers. They break their noses, get electrocuted, and wade in snake-infested waters. There's more beer for sale than there is ice cream. Guests regularly dare each other to attempt things they probably wouldn't while sober. Often, they come close to drowning. On a normal day, the pool's lifeguards have to rescue up to 30 people. Every year, hundreds or more are seriously injured.
I'm sorry, but you can get mad at lawyers all you want. I hate lawsuits. Lawsuits are the #1 reason the parks you go to don't have almost 30 people having to be saved a day. If you follow the money, corporations want to protect their money. What is wrong with the owners of a corporation that would allow that many people to potentially get hurt? That's not an individual isolated incident. That is just a total failure to care. This is going to be fun as an intro. Let's see what we got. By the way, as we get into this, Fern, you are amazing. Fern animated this entire thing so they could take the facts, the cold hard facts and documents, and put this all together by hand. These are humans recreating this so we can actually get the visual in addition to the facts that are behind it. Love what you do, Fern. That's so helpful. Let's give credit where it's due.
Emergency services see up to 10 park-related incidents per day. The nearby hospital gets so overwhelmed that the park has to buy them extra ambulances. The park's unwritten motto? No risk, no fun. Safety protocols are basically non-existent. The staff is mostly in their teens, and often intoxicated. And people love it. The park has over 10,000 visitors per day, around 1 million annually. Over the park's 18-year run, 6 people never made it home alive. Behind it all was a ruthless park owner who would stop at nothing. A con artist who flouted rules, laws, and the most basic safety measures. So what were the park's most dangerous attractions? How did so many visitors end up injured or dead? And if there were so many scandals, how did the park keep running for nearly 2 decades?
May I just predict something? I don't want to be a cynical trial lawyer, but for this many injuries to be allowed, someone was making enough money to use that money to try to continue to make the money. I haven't seen this yet. I don't even know if it's true. And one huge lawsuit early on that actually forced them to pay, followed by another huge lawsuit. If those could have been successful, then parks like this can't operate. But you may live in a state right now that has caps on damages, and you're like, woohoo, caps on damages. We shouldn't give money to people who are badly hurt because someone else hurt them. Actually, caps on damages only work once we've proven that someone who was negligent and caused a horrible injury. So you're trying to stop frivolous lawsuits by taking money away from people who are badly hurt. Why did they do that? Why did they get you to believe that until this moment? Because there's money behind stopping the huge lawsuits from people like this that would actually stop them from acting this way. So they focus on the frivolous lawsuits that are actually more of an annoyance than they are a massive issue. This is a massive issue.
For teens in the tri-state area, braving the rides is a rite of passage. That includes the park's most notorious ones. And according to former employees interviewed in the documentary Class Action Park, many of these rides weren't even designed by actual engineers. Some were designed by Gene himself, others by unqualified amateurs. But that doesn't worry guests like 15-year-old Derek here.
I know because I've done countless focus groups and tried cases. I know that right now someone's like, well, if you get on these rides, you assume the risk. You shouldn't be allowed to sue. Well, actually, you have no idea the ride you're getting on wasn't designed by an engineer. You don't even know what kind of engineers are needed to make a ride safe. So when you look at a ride, you're not assuming the risk of something you don't even know exists. When you got on a roller coaster last time, did you assume the risk of death? Maybe in some far off fantasy statistical, you could win the lottery type way, but pretty much you knew that it was designed in a safe way. So while it's scary, you expect you're going to live. How do you know? You're not there every day to count the number of people who are hurt. Sometimes in life, we assume that people in positions of responsibility are making responsible choices.
Not a great plan.
To have no one actually designed for safety, there are engineers that spend their whole lives doing nothing other than designing amusement park rides. Decades of experience, hundreds of years of experience on teams that design a roller coaster or a ride. This park used people with zero. Did they really assume that risk? I don't think so.
Right now, he's 2 beers into his day, waiting in line for battle action tanks. On paper, battle action tanks is basically bumper cars. In practice, it's more like Wimbledon meets one of the hairier battles of the Vietnam War. Riders climb into camouflaged four-wheelers protected by chicken wire cages. Each is powered by a motor, controlled with a joystick, and decked out with a working cannon. The goal is to fire tennis balls at other tanks. Around the arena, spectators man cannons of their own. If they hit a tank directly, it blasts into a tailspin. This is Derek's first ride, just a warm-up. The tennis balls are fired at an insanely fast 160 kilometers per hour, and employees have to run onto the battlefield to collect stray balls.
100 miles an hour, just so you guys know, that is a faster fastball than most major league pitchers can throw. 100 miles an hour. I just want to put that into context, the speed at which those balls are coming out.
I don't know if you also caught, he's 2 beers in, he's 15 years old. They served alcohol to underage kids all the time, every single day.
Listen, when it's profits over people, why not serve the 15-year-old kid some beer and make some more money, right? And listen, am I absolving a 15-year-old? No, 15-year-olds choose to drink and things happen. And if things happen, the 15-year-old knew that the 15-year-old shouldn't drink. 15-year-old did not know the dangers of this ride. Let's see what happens. You know it's not going to end well or it wouldn't be in this video.
Many riders love taking this opportunity to target them. If anyone scores a direct hit to an employee's groin, the crowd goes wild. Gene loves watching this gladiatorial combat. He's often found soaking up the battle vibes from the sidelines. It's also where he likes to assign his chronically late employees as a punishment. According to Class Action Park, many of the staff aren't trained professionals. They're teenagers, some as young as 14. That's on brand for Action Park, where ignoring rules is part of the park's identity. Plus, teenagers are cheap labor. They don't ask questions and are often happy to test Gene's newest death-defying inventions.
I don't really have a problem with hiring teens. I worked as a teen. My first job, I was 11 years old, coming up on 12. Teens can work hard in every amusement park I go to has teens, but you know what happens to those parks? They get trained. An untrained teenager in a dangerous park, probably a bad combination, right?
This is the Super Go-Kart. It's gas-powered and designed for racing, but more commonly used for crashing. There are 20 in total. They may look small, but watch your neck. They accelerate like a spooked horse. They're known to cause whiplash and broken bones. They're supposed to max out at 32 kilometers an hour, but sometimes the staff likes to override the speed controls, enabling the carts to reach more than 80 kilometers an hour. The really daring ones take a special souped-up model. Some employees even take these mini racers for after-work spins on the nearby state highway.
When the employees took those go-karts out on the road, if they got into an accident, is the theme park liable or are they liable? Or is it a combination of the two?
That's such a great question. So if an employee gets in one of those go-karts, takes it on the road, if they were working at the time, they'd be covered by workers' comp. But it's unlikely, although in this case, maybe it's possible, but unlikely they had permission. Now, if the owners knew they were taking it out, then you get into a hazier area. Regardless, they go out and they get hurt, right? If it's their fault, they can't sue the other driver they were involved in a collision with because it's their fault. Can they sue the park for letting them take it? They're gonna have a really hard time because they basically took it without permission. And unlike my other example, in the example of say a 17-year-old kid taking a go-kart that has no business on the road, out on a road without permission, action. 17-year-olds are held to the standard of a reasonable 17-year-old. A 15-year-old's held to the standard of a reasonable 15-year-old. A 10-year-old's reasonable 10-year-old. Now, once you're 18, you're just held to the standard of a reasonable person. Anyone who works there knows that a go-kart on a regular road, probably a really bad idea. And so they're going to have trouble suing anyone for their choice. Well, they can sue, which is one of the things with lawsuits. Like, these lawsuits are ridiculous. A lawsuit's just someone claiming someone else did something. That lawsuit you could file, but they're going to lose.
Somehow, action park rides make it through mandatory state inspections. Since amusement park regulation is so new, inspectors don't always know what they're looking for. State law requires that Gene take out liability insurance, or what might be considered dangerous. But Gene doesn't believe in insurance. Too expensive, too much bureaucracy.
Let's talk about insurance. Everyone loves to hate on insurance companies. Insurance is a key to the way we work in this country, to a capitalist society. Why? Because random bad things can happen to anybody. What we're doing is we're spreading out the risk, right? You buy homeowners insurance. God forbid your house burns down. You don't have insurance. That entire house is gone. You're back to zero. Worse than zero. So everyone hates insurance companies. They make a lot of money. They make a lot of money, bringing in a lot of money, and done the right way, they're helping a lot of people. I don't understand sometimes the mentality behind not requiring liability insurance. If you're going to sell alcohol, why not require, as part of me as a state giving you the right to sell alcohol, that you're going to have enough insurance so if you get someone so drunk they can barely walk but they get in the car and drive and they hurt somebody and your bar is proven to have done something wrong, that you can actually pay what you owe. And the same would be true here. You have an amusement park. You know that there's risk in any amusement, even one done well. Why not require insurance to make sure that if someone gets hurt, the person who got hurt because of your proven negligence actually gets compensated to the degree they should? So the fact that this guy was apparently, we're about to find out, allowed to get away with this is to me crazy. Like, you're operating something that in this case has a string of injuries, but even if they don't, the risk of injury is high enough. If I'm going to let you operate this, then you're going to make sure you have financial wherewithal to pay what you owe, what you've been proven to owe, and only what you've been proven to owe. You don't do anything wrong, someone gets hurt, it's not your fault, or no one gets hurt, no problem. But you have to have the protection there for the people that are coming in as your guests.
But Gene doesn't believe in insurance. Too expensive, too much bureaucracy. He'd need to insure the accident-prone action park for at least $2 million a year, with premiums rising every time something goes wrong. So he simply starts his own insurance company, London and World Insurance, headquartered in the Cayman Islands. That allows him to produce fake insurance documents while paying premiums to himself, and using the company to launder money. But back to Gene's visionary ideas. One of them was the Bailey ball. He doesn't have a permit for it yet. Today is testing day. The ball consists of two plastic spheres, one nested inside the other. The outer sphere is covered in office chair wheels. The inner one is mounted on ball bearings, so it can spin independently of the outer shell, keeping the seat upright. Attached to the seat is a race car-style harness. The Bailey ball wasn't designed by an engineer, but by a janitor who long dreamed of breaking into the theme park business. Gene loves it.
I hate labels. It was designed by a janitor. The janitor is just as capable as the owner of this theme park in designing something that requires engineering.
Knife wrench!
You can diss the guy because he's a janitor who thought of breaking in, but the guy who owns the park is no more qualified to do this than the janitor or the person at the food service, the person in the parking lot. None of them are qualified if they don't have the background to be able to come up with these kinds of ideas.
This is the test pilot, Frank, a regular employee that Gene convinced to do the job by slipping him $100. The idea is that Frank will roll down the hill, sitting upright, and come to a gentle stop at the bottom of the mountain. Here's the state safety inspector, sent to rubber stamp the ride.
Crash test
dummies. As long as it doesn't scream instant death, the Bailey ball will be cleared for use by the public. Frank is strapped in a ball, ready to launch. For the first few meters, it's all going according to plan. Frank's rolling smoothly, and he's still upright. But nobody accounted for the laws of thermodynamics. The problem with PVC in the hot sun is that it expands rapidly. The plastic track that was supposed to give the ball direction has bulged and warped. Frank doesn't even make it through the first switchback.
I am amazed that they didn't try rolling this down without someone in it first. Like, that doesn't take an engineer, it just takes a freaking brain. Like, let's make sure this works at all times of day, in all conditions, and then we'll put a dummy the size of a person and the weight of a person, and we'll observe that, and then we can start getting to human testing after everything has shown us to say, you just threw someone on there for the first time?
It hurtles off the track and starts rolling down the hill, rapidly gaining speed. The safety inspector can only watch, frozen in horror. The ball hurtles down the hill and flies off park grounds. It's now headed for the road. Cars honk and screech to a halt. Somehow, the ball avoids any collisions, and eventually, it crashes into a pond. Frank emerges, dazed and sputtering, with blood on his shirt, but alive. The inspector does not grant Gene approval for the Bailey ball.
The fact that that inspector didn't say anyone that would try to get this to pass, we need to check everything in this park, is concerning too. Like, what? How many people had to look the other way for this place to keep going?
Imagine you're holding 6 meters of rope. The pool beneath you is 4.5 meters deep. The Tarzan swing may look like a simple rope swing, but later on, it'll be one of the first rides the state shuts down for good. Braving this swing is a rite of passage. Mess this up with a belly flop, and you'll never live it down. Derek isn't worried. He's a great swimmer. He grabs the rope, swings far out over the pool, and lets go. The second he hits the pool, everything shuts down. He's just plunged from 35 degrees Celsius air into bone-chilling 10 degrees Celsius water. The spring-fed water is so cold, he forgets how to swim. He flails, stunned. A smirking lifeguard hauls him out and slaps a wristband on him. Scrawls across it are the letters CFS, shorthand for can't f***ing swim.
Oh my gosh, like, the level of professionalism.
Was such a shock to one swimmer's system that he went into cardiac arrest and died.
Look, if you go into cardiac arrest from that and thousands of others don't, you probably had some pre-existing condition and maybe you took the risk. Not everything that bad that happens in the park is necessarily horribly done.
Insurance, the company allegedly
But
backing
CFS?
Action Park, doesn't really exist. In 1984, the authorities catch on to his scheme. He pleads guilty to fraud and is slapped with $300,000 in fines and 3 years probation. He's also ordered to sell the park. According to Class Action Park, Gene doesn't have the slightest intention of doing that. So far, he's been renting part of the property from the state of New Jersey. To provoke officials, he reportedly stops paying his bills and ignores their letters. After some back and forth, New Jersey agrees to sell him the land for a steal, allegedly just to get him off their backs. Gene wins and goes on to further expand his park.
He's already been ordered to sell it, and now he's able to expand it. Wouldn't you love to know how that could happen?
The secret ingredient is crime.
This might be the single most ludicrous ride in Action Park. Gene himself designed it, on a cocktail napkin. It's a ride to be endured, not enjoyed. It's called the Cannonball Loop. The idea is simple. A water slide about 5 stories tall with a 360-degree loop at the end. But the park keeps having to tweak the design, since the crash test dummies it uses for testing tend to emerge headless. Derek watches the guy in front of him enter first. A few seconds later, he's spit out into the pool. Head first, but alive. That's good enough for Derek. The lifeguards hose him down. Friction is the enemy here. Momentum is everything. This isn't just about fun. He can't afford to lose any speed, or he might not make it through the loop. Derek's heard the horror stories. Guests who dropped straight down inside the slide and slammed face first into the fiberglass, finally emerging into the landing area bloodied and toothless. And the guests who followed them, who emerged covered in cuts and bruises caused by other people's teeth still embedded in the slide. Derek's getting cold feet, but he can't back down now. Not after the Tarzan swing incident. He shoots into darkness. It's fast, brutal, and then he hits the loop. He crawls out dazed, bleeding from the elbow. But at least he's alive. The authorities only require Gene to report serious injuries. But according to Class Action Park,
what do you mean? They required him to report serious injuries. They required him to sell the park and he didn't do it. They required him to have insurance that he didn't have. Who cares what you require if you don't enforce what you require? They required him to report serious injuries. Come on.
If the state kind of backed down and didn't force him to do what they wanted him to do, would they now be liable because they enabled him to continue doing the stuff he was doing?
So there's two sets of laws when it comes to lawsuits in this country. There's a set of laws between you and me, or you and a corporation, or the corporation and you, and then there's the government. And the government has its own set of laws. And so the government gets to protect itself. Imagine if you got to write a set of rules in the world, and the rules were, here are the rules for everyone else, but here are the rules for me. Now, what do you think you would do if you could write the rules for you? Would you ever be accountable or responsible? Sure, sometimes you want to look good, but not a lot, right? So you would create a set of rules where the game is rigged in your favor. Now, if the game is rigged in your favor, do you think you will then be more responsible or less responsible? Welcome to the governments in the United States of America.
The game was rigged from the start.
They have all kinds of immunity, and they use that immunity in many cases to write laws to protect themselves. Although every state does it differently, the likelihood is that the state will not be successfully sued for not shutting down this park in most places. Credit to any state that has waived enough of their immunity they're granted to actually be held accountable, because when people are held accountable, they act differently. They act better. With your kids, maybe you say what I say, let them fail. You've got to let the kids fail so they learn responsible behavior. If you give people a buffer. This is the problem with all the lawsuit protections for everyone. Oh, it's good. It's too many lawsuits. The more you protect people from their own negligence, the more negligent they're going to be, the less accountable they will be, because there's nothing to hold them accountable. Now, if you want to come up with a system that holds accountable people for bringing frivolous lawsuits where they exist, fine. But don't let people off the hook who have been proven to be negligent and badly hurt someone. I know it's the second time I've talked about it in this video, but so no, the state will probably not be liable. This is insane. This guy is screaming and yelling, I'm gonna do it my way. People are getting hurt. He reports who gets hurt. If you go to this park, sure, you've heard the stories, whatever. You don't know the depth and degree of how dangerous. How could you possibly know that? You wouldn't. You see thousands of people come and go every day, not getting hurt, not realizing far more people are being hurt at this one park than almost all the other parks in the country combined. You don't know that. You can't know that.
When victims or their families sue the park, Gene almost always refuses to settle. Instead, he drags them to court, knowing that trials are often expensive, tedious, and emotionally exhausting. Many families aren't willing to go through that.
Welcome to my world. Have any of you ever been involved in a lawsuit or a potential lawsuit? How long it is, how expensive it is, how much time you have to give. Everyone starts out going, I'm ready. Yes, but our system is broken in that it's so delayed and so expensive and so complicated that people who have every right to hold someone accountable often do not hold them accountable. And so you have people like this. Have you seen it? Have you ever seen in court where people get away with stuff, not because the judge got it wrong or because you disagree with the law? That of course happens. Because you or another party was just like, I quit. I just can't do it anymore. That's the game that this guy's playing, and he's allowed to play. Now that's not on him. That's on us creating a court system that allows defendants or any party to drag it out unnecessarily.
Gene reportedly wins the vast majority of these cases.
Do you know why Gene wins the vast majority of these cases? Maybe he wins the vast majority of these cases because he wasn't negligent in the vast majority of the cases. It's absolutely possible. Another possibility is he doesn't even report all the injuries. So the person who gets hurt on this ridiculous slide that's begging for trouble, he goes to court and the defendant goes, no one else gets hurt on this slide. And you don't have the documentation because the state didn't require you to properly document. You didn't have any insurance because they might have required you to document. So now you get to go in court and you get rewarded for not doing the right thing, and people who should have been compensated now don't get compensation because you did everything wrong and no one held you accountable.
On the rare occasions he loses, he stalls on making any payments to the victims, sometimes until law enforcement orders him to.
See what I'm saying? This is why everyone should have insurance, because once he owed the money, it is so much harder to collect when there's not insurance to pay what he owes.
This is the Alpine slide. It's an 820-meter-long concrete track winding down the mountain, which riders descend on small plastic sleds equipped with a handbrake. At first glance, it looks like good, clean fun. It's marketed as safe for grandparents and infants. But in reality, the Alpine slide will rack up more injuries and lawsuits than any other ride in the park. The sleds have two speeds, painfully slow, or what employees call death awaits. Riders switch between these two states with a simple handbrake, if that brake happens to work.
What's amazing is that could easily be designed so that the top speed is far less dangerous than death awaits. Tell any teenager what are they going to choose and what do you think they're going to choose? Because they assume, by the way, just like you did, that the adults in the room may have had some risk to it, but not where a bunch of people are getting badly hurt.
If a parent brought their kid or they just went themselves and they signed a waiver, does Action Park have immunity no matter what if they sign a waiver?
Such a good question. Waivers are different in every state. In some states, if you sign a waiver, you've lost all your rights. In another set of states, if you sign the waiver, then the waiver can be used against you. You still have your rights, but the jury can decide whether or not they're going to allow that waiver to apply. And in some states, the waivers do not apply, depending on the situation. It's really a tough situation because there's not a lot of amusement park choices. A group of lawyers decide what's on the back of your ticket, whether you sign it or not. And so when you buy tickets to anything like this, you're probably signing something at some point in the process, or looking at a sign or at some point acknowledging that they have no liability. The problem is, what about all the things they hid? Are they still not accountable to it? It depends. But it's funny because a lot of people, I'm in lines, take my kids places, they read from start to finish the liability waivers. For what? If you disagree with it, what are you going to do? Are you going to not go? Then you might as well not even read it, because those liability waivers are written in a way that you're just not going to go. If you disagree with the sentence, who are you going to talk to? The teenager at the front desk? And go, I disagree with this heretofore. Could we reword that? No, I'm not a lawyer. You're not a lawyer. Our lawyer's not here. You're going to sign it or not. So I'm not being critical of people being informed, but these things are written by lawyers in a way to protect them to the extent that that state's law allows them to protect themselves.
Derek rides the ski lift up the mountain. Teenagers overhead are spitting on riders and throwing sleds, trying to hit any unlucky riders below.
To be fair, if a teenager throws a sled on somebody below, that's on the teenager. The sled is dangerous enough that you throw it, you hit somebody, I would say you should go to prison. Like, you're old enough to know better.
In 1980, the Alpine slide claims Action Park's first life. 19-year-old George Larson is hurled off his sled and slams his head against a rock. Allegedly, this rock had already been flagged for removal, but Gene and his team ignored it. That sounds straightforward. The park is to blame for Larson's death. But Action Park argues it wasn't the slide that killed Larson. It was the rock. So technically, the ride itself is safe. According to Larson's family, the press has fed a version claiming George rode the slide at night in the rain. But the accident actually happened during normal operating hours and in good weather. The case never goes to court. Action Park quietly settles with the family for $100,000. The Alpine slide stays open.
All right, here's the deal. A lot of those settlements are done confidentially. Why are they done confidentially? So that bad actors that want to keep making money off their bad acts don't get word out about their bad actions, right? They can keep making money. Now, the person who's suing, what are they supposed to do? Risk the $100,000, which seems 45 years later to be low, but we don't know all the facts. So let's just say it was the fair amount. But they say, all right, but you have to agree to keep this confidential. What's the family supposed to do? Risk $100,000 because they want other people to know? That would be, it's a big word for me, altruistic thing to do. But it's also they've suffered this horrible loss and maybe they want to do something for a charity or something for their other kids or something to come from this horrible tragedy, whatever it is. Maybe they just want that bastard over there to pay and they don't want to risk him going to trial and not having to pay anything. This is the problem with confidential settlements. If we allow them, then they're going to take place all over and they're going to decrease safety. If we don't allow them, more cases go to trial. But in some ways, isn't that good? I mean, don't we want the world to see what's going on good? If lawsuits are baseless, let's let the world see they're baseless. What do you think? Honestly, should we allow confidential settlements?
Let's say somebody came to you and they said, hey, I went to this theme park and that same thing happened where their kid fell off the ride, they hit their head on a rock, and the owner tries to argue that it wasn't the ride's fault, it was the rock's fault. Is that a valid argument? How would you go about that?
There's no such defense. There is no such defense as the rock caused it. There's an act of God defense. A tornado comes along while the kid's riding. Well, that wasn't us. That was an act of God. The rock was there in a park that we designed to come through here. Anyone that could hit something near that ride, the rock defense is either a ridiculous defense or a misunderstanding at some point along the way as to what they were claiming. We're not responsible for the rock being there is ridiculous. You own the land. You built the ride. You know people come off of these carts to allow something there that dramatically increases the risk of death. That kid they just showed was 19 in 1980. His whole life was stolen. He'd be 64 years old right now, living his life in all likelihood, if they just don't have the rock there. That was all taken. They got to pay $100,000 while bad-mouthing him in the press. It's ridiculous.
So how do you think something like that, even in 1980, how do you think something like that wasn't made into like a slam dunk case for the family?
Because it's not that easy. First of all, you always blame the victim. That's what defendants do. So they go, think of a 19-year-old boy going down this that gets thrown. What do you think you know immediately? He was flying. He was taking the risk. A lot of people then or now would go, hey man, come on. You knew the risk you took. Will the average juror go, yeah, he took the risk if he got thrown onto grass, and if he had been killed in that way, okay. But he didn't know the risk. This could have been designed better. He didn't decide the speed that this thing was allowed to go, and he sure as hell didn't scout the course to make sure there were no rocks that he could fly into. But that's more complicated. The easy thing is dumb 19-year-old goes too fast and they blame the victim. And so that's how this stuff happens until jurors start saying, yeah, we'll blame you for your actions. You're going to be held accountable for going too fast and for losing control, but we're also going to hold the other side accountable. So in all likelihood, the family knew they had a potentially good case, but also knew they could lose it. The other thing is, every county is different. The exact same case in the South Bronx has a totally different jury than a case in rural Nebraska. Two different juries have two different outcomes because it's two different decision makers. Depending on the jury pool in this jurisdiction, this could be one of the jurisdictions where defendants win almost 100% of the time.
The deadliest ride in the park might not be what you'd expect, and that might have been what made it so dangerous. The attraction that killed the most people was the wave pool, also known as the grave pool. It may look harmless, inviting even, but this is no kiddie pool. It's a massive pool that can hold about 1,000 guests. It's about 30 meters wide and 76 meters long. Giant pressure chambers generate artificial waves up to 1 meter tall.
As an injury lawyer,
riptide. The deep
I
end
hate
reaches
wave pools
2.4 meters.
because of the risk they create. And as they said, they look safe.
The water sparkles.
They look like
Music
fun.
plays. The pool almost looks relaxed.
And they can be.
He wades in and is immediately sucked under by the current. He surfaces, gasping, to find hundreds of people thrashing around near him. It feels like an artificial ocean, so a lot of people expect salt water, but they're wrong. The pool is filled with fresh water, so it's less buoyant and easier to sink in. And half of the people in it are drunk. A guy near Derek is flailing around. Derek sees one lifeguard dive in for a save, then another. Throughout the 80s, 3 people drown in the wave pool. A 15-year-old boy and 2 young men aged 18 and 20. In the end, 6 people die at Action Park. 3 in the wave pool, 1 on the alpine slide, and 1 on the Tarzan swing. The 6th victim was an unlucky kayaker who capsized, stepped on a live underwater wire, and was fatally electrocuted. With that many injuries and deaths, the park should have been shut down long ago. So why did it stay open for so long? Over the years, families, journalists, and authorities repeatedly put pressure on Action Park, but Gene somehow always managed to dodge any form of responsibility. According to Class Action Park, rumor had it friends in high places were looking out for him. Gene had close ties with local business leaders and politicians. Action Park was a major employer in the area. And Rob, Gene's generous money man, was always just a phone call away. Whenever he was under attack, Gene fought back, sometimes with sketchy methods. One journalist alleges that, when Gene was faced with criticism, he retaliated, phoning her boss and ultimately getting her fired. And when a man Gene owed money wanted to claim it, Gene reportedly threatened to hire a Russian hitman to kill him and his family. Gene went on like this for years, dodging his responsibilities and delaying settlement payments. He embodied the Reaganomics spirit of the 80s, minimal government intervention, and a belief that deregulation was the key to innovation.
How do people manage to make everything political?
But that changed in the 90s. The lawsuits kept piling up, earning the park its nickname, Class Action Park. Attendance started dropping. By 1996, mounting legal battles, medical bills, and safety mandates finally caught up with Gene. Action Park shut down. Millions of dollars in debt. Gene went on to complain he had lost more money on the park than he ever made. Since then, the park has repeatedly changed hands and names. Today, it's just a water park, with some of the old attractions still in place. But Action Park itself is history.
Listen, so I've seen general statistics when it comes to amusement parks now. More and more amusement parks are not small little move around regional things which have more danger inherently in them. There tend to be the bigger parks, scarier rides, but also better done. There are dangers, there are risks. They are not guaranteed safe. This is why if we make sure that we don't cap damages so that if someone is negligent and their negligence badly hurts someone else, they're accountable. They're less likely to act negligently. So would I tell you not to go to a park? No, go to the roller coaster. There is some risk. To some degree, we have to trust that the system will work to help keep it safe. And when the government does their job and the litigation system does its job, we hold people accountable and we make things safe. Follow the money sometimes. That's what happened here. This guy got away with it over and over again, if you believe everything we just heard. And that's why people kept getting hurt. When it was totally avoidable, he had just been held accountable and forced to do things, but there was no accountability. And so bad injuries, lots of injuries. I hope you enjoyed this walk down a dangerous theme park with a trial lawyer. I'd really like to hear your thoughts on some of the things that I raised. Don't forget, subscribe, like, follow, comment, do whatever you can do. And don't forget that right over here, is it right here? YouTube's screaming at you. You need to check this out. So go ahead and check that out. Make sure you tell me what else you want. Thank you for spending the day with a trial lawyer talking about some things that trial lawyers can actually help save lives with.